All right, guys. It's time.
It's on.
I gotta address something. There's been a lot of things going wrong lately. A lot of things around my name.
A lot of things going on in your personal life.
Yeah, and I think right here on YouTube.com is the place to address this one. Guys, I have just an announcement to make here, and this is gonna be really tough to talk about.
You can do it. I'm here. I'm your rock. I'm actually not your rock. He is.
I haven't watched Josh Pate the entire offseason.
Oh my God! I can't trust you. How we're supposed to be doing a college football playoff prediction special, and you haven't even watched Late Kick with Josh Pate?
I know. Everybody's been talking about it all over the Facebook, all over the Instagram. Matt hasn't been watching Josh Pate. How is he qualified to be in this video?
Genuinely, I'm pedo, but listen, we're gonna put this aside. We'll handle this after the show. I feel dishonored. I feel betrayed, but we got to talk about college football because, guys, I don't know if you know this. We're less than a month away from the season starting. And I also don't know if many people know this. I think my mic is caught up on the corner of the table. I don't
Always
like that.
something with you and the mics, man.
Yeah, let's hope that we have our microphones on for this video. But I don't know if a lot of people realize this yet, but we might be in prime position for another Renaissance type year. Now, I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with this. It was 2021. Talking about Late Kick with Josh Pate, he called that season the Renaissance season, and he did like his Renaissance story, went from stadium to stadium. That season was insane. We saw more parity in the sport than we'd seen in a little while, and I think we're actually set up really well to have something like that, and it just so coincides with the advent of the 12-team playoff, which actually is a little frustrating because I think people are going to then attribute the parity to the 12-team playoff, which don't even get me started. The 12-team playoff is stupid.
Will loves it.
It's so stupid, and I hate it. But we're going to talk about it. So here's what we're going to do on this show today. Now, Matt loves college football, but basically his little intro was to tee up the fact that he hasn't quite been keeping it up with it as much in the offseason, right? And you know what? I want to credit his way of going about things. I actually think that sometimes that can be really fun during the college football season, learning about the teams as you go. But I've been watching Late Kick with Josh Pate. I've been trying my best to keep up with the stories that have gone on in the offseason. I've listened to coaches talk, this, that, and the third. And I think I have a pretty good idea of how I think these conferences are going to shape out. So we're going to go through all the power conferences, discuss, which, by the way, there are only 4 of them now.
Well, there is Washington State and Oregon State, the Pac-2.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate college football world we live in at the
It
moment.
would be kind of funny if they still got like the automatic bids, so then Washington State and Oregon State game would just decide who made it. Like,
It's
it
not
would
gonna
be
happen.
terrible.
That doesn't
Like, it would be
happen,
horrible, but it'd be funny. But
Yeah.
also, I think this is going to be kind of cool that I haven't kept up with it, because, like, my predictions, like, obviously they're not going to be as in-depth as yours. I'm not going to talk as much. But, like, they're going to be kind of like the casuals perspective, and you're
Yeah.
going to give, like, the insider perspective.
So, Matt, I'll just let you take it away. What conference do you want to hear about first?
Well, I think I want to hear about the conference that everybody wants to hear about first, the Pac-2. No. Let's talk about, you know what? Let's give them some shine, because I don't think they're going to get a lot this year. Big 12.
Okay, the Big 12 might be the most entertaining conference in college football this year because there isn't, in my opinion, I don't think there's a single elite team. I think, and I have this written down in my notes, I think every single team in the Big 12 can win it. Every single one. And now you might be sitting there going, you think Arizona State can win the Big 12? You think Colorado can win the Big 12?
Best O-line in the country.
Well, do I pick them to win it? No. But I don't know. When you have a conference like this where, you know, it's all within like A to C tier talent and there isn't really that S tier or F tier, anything can happen. So what am I going to fall back on? Well, first off, I'm going to kind of go through the teams that I think are the true contenders who I think we'll see at the end of the year, those being Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Utah. Now, again, some people might sit there and go like, you're putting you're putting Utah in the same conversation as Kansas State. Kansas State's roster is really solid. They have a Heisman hopeful and Avery Johnson on campus. They have arguably, and this is real, arguably the best head coach in college football in Chris Kleiman there on campus. Utah also has one of the best coaches in college football in Kyle Whittingham. They have a veteran quarterback in Cam Rising. And I'm going to go ahead and say that because I think they're going to win the conference. Now, I know that's a tough ask to be brand new to the conference and go in and win it. And you kind of see that with the team that I think goes with them to play in Arlington. I think Oklahoma State is going to be the team that faces them in Arlington. And again, this is another team that people might look at and go like, Oklahoma State? Now, everyone knows about the head coach situation. Everybody knows about arguably the best running back in college football, Ollie Gordon.
And alcohol.
Yeah, but that's been a rampant issue.
I meant Mike Gundy's. Like, I wasn't talking about Ollie Gordon. I was talking about Mike Gundy's little transgression.
Yeah, well, still, he's a phenomenal head coach.
He's 40.
He's a man. He's 40. He's also a phenomenal head coach. He's been one of, let's see, with Saban gone.
He might be the longest tenured now.
He's not the longest tenured, because the longest tenured is Kirk Ferentz, because he's been there since like 1998 at Iowa. But people don't realize, like, just pound for pound, Mike Gundy might have done the best job of any head coach in football with what he's been given. They recruit like in the 30s every year, yet almost every single season that he's been there at Oklahoma State, they've been in the Big 12 title picture. In fact, like it was 2011 that late in the goings they were one game away from going to the national championship game.
That was Brandon Whedon.
Yes, it was. Point being, I never doubt Oklahoma State. I felt the same way about them last year. People laughed at that early on. Where did they end up last year? So, yeah, Utah is my pick to win the Big 12. I will go ahead and say this. They will be my lowest ranked conference champion, though. So, Matt, first off, who you got winning it?
Okay, guys. So this might happen a lot early on, but I promise we will get different. I have the Utah Utes as well. Partially, I'm giving you the casuals perspective here. I knew who Cam Rising was. But no, I don't have them going to play Oklahoma State, though. If I had to pick who their opponent will be, I have Iowa State. I actually flirted, spoiler alert, they're not in, but I flirted with putting Iowa State in the 12-team playoff, but I took them out in a last-second change. But I do think Utah will be the strongest team in the Big 12, but I do agree with Will. I think pretty much anybody can win it, while I would not pick Colorado and Arizona State to win it. I think that they will be in contention. I think there will be a lot of close games and upsets in the Big 12. So where do you want to go next?
Well, and one last thing I'll say is Iowa State is a phenomenal pick. I flirted with them to win the conference outright because they have a lot of returning talent. They have a phenomenal quarterback coming back in Rocco Becht, and they have an incredible head coach. So I'm not actively disagreeing with what you say. That being said, we're going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about the ACC.
Nobody wants to do that.
Well, nobody wants to talk about the ACC unless we're talking about teams leaving it, which we'll see. That could happen as soon as next year. But right now, we're going to talk about the current form of the Atlantic Coastal Conference and who we think is going to win it. And the truth is, I think I have one of the more controversial takes because the team that I have winning it, I think a lot of people think in this day and age it's impossible for them to do it. But let's talk about the other teams first. All right. NC State and Virginia Tech. These two teams are not teams that people are picking to win the conference. I think they have a legitimate shot to do it. NC State has a lot of returning talent, another prolific head coach, and it's kind of like Oklahoma State. This has been a very sneaky, consistent program. I like NC State, and in my opinion, they are a wrecking ball team in this conference. We'll talk about wrecking ball teams a lot. Like, for instance, the Big 12, they're all wrecking ball teams. They can each wreck each other's years on any given Saturday, and I think that's what NC State can do. I also feel the same way about Virginia Tech. This is a window year for Virginia Tech, I think. They have a lot of returning talent again, and they have somebody who, if he plays his best football and stays healthy, in Kyron Drones, that guy could end up in New York at the end of the year. Like, that is an incredible talent that they have there, and they have a favorable schedule. They do have to go to Miami in about week 5 or 6, I believe, but the only advantage to drawing them on the road is the fact that Miami's home environment is just not going to be that strong, playing in an NFL stadium. Now, we will talk about Miami being a strong opponent regardless in just a couple seconds. But then Virginia Tech, I believe it's week 9, there's a path where they could be undefeated going into host Clemson. We'll come back to that. Now let's talk about Miami, because Miami is probably the hottest topic in the ACC, except for the team that I have picked to win it. You have Mario Cristobal. You have people sort of, I think, falsely, I identifying what this team does, very similar to their in-state rival Florida State, where there are people that seem to think that this team is just purely built through the transfer portal and that it's unsustainable. Guys, Mario Cristobal is one of the best high school recruiters in the country, and there will be contributors on this team that were specifically recruited out of high school. Think of like Francis Malagoa. But they have supplemented through the transfer portal, mainly tailback and quarterback. Tailback, Damian Martinez. We talk about potential off-the-field issues. He's had them. I don't care. Prolific running back out at Oregon State. He's going to step into Miami and do good things there. And then Cam Ward. Cam Ward might be the most important player in college football because I truly do think this team goes as he goes. Cam Ward has the ceiling of winning the Heisman. And I don't think he has that low of a floor. I just think this team is leaning on him. They need him to bring a next level of play to win the ACC, which is not something that I think people are sitting here realizing that the ACC, it's not a cakewalk. Is it the strongest conference in college football? No. You could argue.
Oh. Wait, I thought that's always your point. No?
Mm-mm.
So it's not?
No, it's not. It's actually not. So anyway, point is, they have the talent. They have all of the talent in the world that they need to win, regardless of what some people think. They have the coaching talent and the coaching staff to do it. So not just Mario Cristobal. I mean, I think a good example. Oh, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but their strength coach is incredible specifically. But I'm not picking them to win the conference. I am flirting with them to go to the conference championship. The reason I don't have them going is because there are just certain rivalries that have leaned so drastically one team's way that I have a hard time seeing the other team winning it. I'll give a personal example. Auburn is allergic to beating Georgia, specifically in Athens. I don't think we've done it since 2007 or something like that.
That was a crazy stat that I found out last year.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but and the truth is, like, we've been allergic to beating Georgia in general. We've done it like twice in the last 12 years, last 14 years.
Wait till this year.
Nah, we play them in Athens, man. We're so screwed. We're so screwed. Yeah, I'd have a hard time picking Miami to beat Florida State. And I also have a hard time picking Florida State to lose games, even though you look at all the talent that has gone to the NFL. Oh, and also, by the way, Miami has line of scrimmage talent as well. And because I wanted to tee that up because I was getting ready to talk about Florida State's line of scrimmage talent. Miami has that there too. They are as physical as any team they will play. But I think Florida State is going to go to Charlotte. I think they still play that game in Charlotte, the ACC championship. Guys, I think Clemson is going to win the ACC. What? How is that possible? Dabo won't leverage the transfer portal. They haven't recruited as well as they did. They have an intangible there. They have a strong culture. That's not to say that they don't have that at Florida State. They absolutely do. That's not to say that they don't have that at Miami. They absolutely do. They have that everywhere else. But Clemson's culture is so established, and people don't realize Clemson has been this institution of greatness in football for the last decade. That is something that is hard to replicate by a coach that maybe has only been with his program for 5 years and has only been good there for 3. Dabo Swinney is a winning football coach. They have talent on campus. Now, you do look and say, like, okay, well, you know, last offensive coordinator hire didn't pan out at all. Garrett Riley didn't do incredible things last year. But I think we're going to see year-over-year progression. Cade Klubnik is an immensely talented player, and I think he is enough for Clemson to win this conference. Now, I will say, talking about the conferences, this is the one that I have the worst read on, because actually my gut tells me that Miami or Florida State wins it. I'll just be blunt about that. On paper, in gut, those teams are winning. I just have a weird feeling that Clemson is going to win it, and I kind of want them to, just because I want people to see that this thing can be done a different way. You can have, as a head coach, these core principles that you don't bend on, regardless of the landscape of college football changing.
Well, guys, call me a hack. Call me whatever you want. But I promise you, we sent these in text, so I did not see his before. I have Clemson beating Florida State in the ACC championship. I promised I did not copy him. I have Clemson because I actually, being an Alabama fan, it might be weird. I actually really like Dabo Swinney. I like his principles and doing it a different way, like Will just said. I have Florida State, their future's undecided, spoiler alert, in mind. But I did flirt with putting Miami in this game because Will did tell me a lot about Miami throughout the offseason a little bit. I don't know that much about North Carolina or Virginia Tech, besides the fact that it is tough to go to Virginia Tech and play a football game. So I think they will probably upset somebody there. But I do have Clemson beating Florida State, and we'll see where Florida State lands in my predictions later.
Now, this is going to be the most fun one to talk about, in my opinion.
I can talk here a little bit.
Guys, let's talk about the SEC. All right, I'm just going to throw out a list. These are the teams that I could genuinely see making the college football playoff. I've tried to kind of do that with every conference, but every single one of these teams, I see a genuine path for it to happen. Georgia, Texas, Texas A&M, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Florida. Now, this is where it gets fun. Because how could Florida possibly make the college football playoff?
That's what I was about to say.
They have not been good under Billy Napier. According to what a lot of people believe, they haven't recruited well under Billy Napier. And they have the toughest schedule in college football. Well, I'll just be blunt. Do I actively think they're going to make the playoffs? No. But they certainly can, because contrary to popular belief, they have the talent, they have the culture, they have the head coach, and they have the home environment. If this team gets hot early and they're in a prime spot to do so, they absolutely can go on a run. Now, I think their role is like we talked about earlier. I think they're more of a wrecking ball, because though I don't see them making the playoffs, any of these playoff teams, you don't want to see them go to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. You just do not want to play a football game there at all.
Football?
Shut up, Matt. You don't want to play a football game at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. But Florida hosts Miami to start the year. Week 1, that is an inflection point. If they drop that game at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, a lot of what I'm saying goes out the window. In my opinion, that's a game that you can't lose if you're Florida. The conversation around Billy Napier is going to get really toxic if you do. In fact, that's going to be the case both ways. But Billy Napier's the one his job might be under threat, which sucks, because I don't think he's been given a fair chance there due to the higher-ups and the NIL situation that they've had going on. Now, they actually have recruited very well, and they have guys from this past recruiting class who could step in and be impact players, mainly LJ McCray on the defensive side of the ball, but there's also a world where we could maybe see quarterback DJ Lagway get in this thing. Now, I don't think we will see him if Florida's good, because Graham Mertz, there were 2 players on the Florida Gators last year that I just had no faith in. Graham Mertz, Ricky Pearsall.
First-round pick, Ricky Pearsall.
Graham Mertz was one of the better quarterbacks in college football. Ricky Pearsall was actually awesome last year.
First-round pick, Ricky Pearsall.
He developed. They both developed. They played well. It was an up-and-down year for Florida, and that schedule wasn't as tough as this one. My point is, I think they are going to beat Miami. I think Miami's going to start off the year 0-1, which is actually a large reason why I don't have them winning the conference title or going to the conference championship of the ACC, because then I also see them losing to Florida State, potentially being under threat to Virginia Tech, this, that, and the third. Now, I've gotten Florida out of the way. They're a little bit of a wild card. Now, I want to talk about LSU. I like LSU a lot. My main issue is line of scrimmage talent. They missed on guys in the portal, and that defense was god-awful last year.
It was really bad.
Yeah, they absolutely can progress. I think we will see some progression, but I don't know that they got the guys in the door that they need to take a leap forward, at least enough to make the playoffs, win the SEC. Missouri. let's see. I want to make sure I have my notes right for Missouri. Yeah. Missouri, I don't think they're a one-year wonder by any means. I think a lot of people are throwing that label around because I'll be real. I don't think they're paying attention. The quarterback, Brady Cook, he's coming back. He was solid. And they have arguably the best wide receiver in the country. Luther Burden is still there. They have one of the more underrated head coaches in college football, Eli Drinkowitz. He has done incredible things at Missouri, and he's keeping in-state kids like on the recruiting trail. And I know that you can't just take bowl games for what they are anymore, but they are coming off of a Rose Bowl victory against Ohio State. This is a strong team from last year, and I think they're going to be just as strong. The problem is they have to go on the road against Alabama and Texas A&M, and I do not see them winning either of those games because I don't really see many people being able to do that, which we'll get to later on. So they're going to be good. They are definitely a fringe playoff team, but I do not have them going to Atlanta. I'm gonna save Ole Miss. Let's talk about Tennessee. Tennessee is actually primed for a run, in my opinion. Lots of their tough games are at Neyland, so that's favorable. But and again, I think the SEC is largely going to come down to road games. Who you draw and have to play on the road. They go to NC State out of conference, but do you really want to play NC State? But your answer should be no. They go to Oklahoma. That is Oklahoma. I could be wrong. I think that's the first SEC game that they host. And then they have to go on the road to Georgia. That's a loss. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't want it to be. I mean, look at this thing right here. That will be a loss. It is. Matt's an Alabama fan. We'll go ahead and say that. Yeah, Tennessee is not going to go on the road to Georgia and beat them, and that could be my Auburn bias saying like, oh well, we can't beat them in Athens, nobody can. You just gotta do that. You just put it in the hole, Matt. Put it in the hole, Matt.
Don't tempt me to make jokes. You know it won't go over well.
No, it will not. So I think Tennessee is another fringe playoff team. In fact, I think they have a better chance to make the playoff. Is that a tease? But I don't see them making it to Athens because just because they play a team at home does not make it an auto win. One of those teams they play at home is Alabama. The last time Alabama was at Neyland, we know what happened. And there are still players from that team that are there. And
Don't
again,
bring it up again.
well, I will have to bring it up again, but
No.
well, no, I will, but you might like what I have to say. And yes, that is a teaser. All right.
Okay.
Where is Oklahoma? There ain't no love in Oklahoma. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I had to. All right. The Oklahoma Sooners. They're probably, I think the odds market has them, their over-under, I think, is 7.5, maybe 6.5. It's really low. This is a really good team, and I know people are kind of caught off guard because they look at the Brent Venables extension and things like that, and they say, like, well, what has he done? Well,
They did improve last year.
they improved last year. They beat Texas. And I think that's another hinge point in this conference. We talk about rivalry games.
We do get to keep the Red River rivalry.
We do get to keep the Red River rivalry. Another thing we get to keep is Oklahoma beating Texas. This is another one of those got to get the monkey off the back situations. Oh, there are just a few truths in life. One of them is that Oklahoma tends to just beat Texas. But their stretch to end the year is pretty brutal. They go to Mizzou. They host Alabama. Then they go to LSU. That should be a night game in Death Valley.
Oh, guys,
That's tough.
Real quick, while we're on the topic of Oklahoma, I need to talk to the heads of the SEC real quick. Please, Oklahoma and Auburn, the game should be at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please, you can put it on ABC. You can put it there because we have to go work an Auburn game, and I don't want to watch the Alabama-Georgia game at all, but like if I happen to like see it, it'd be real cool. So please, head to SEC. I don't know your names, but
Greg Sankey.
Greg Sankton. I can't spell it.
Sankey.
I can't say it either.
Sankey.
Mr. Greg, please. Oklahoma, Auburn, 12 p.m. Continue with the actual facts that the people want to hear, not my stupid voice.
All right, let's talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. The Bulldogs actually might, pound for pound, be the best team in the SEC. I don't think a lot of people realize the only thing that keeps their schedule from being as tough as Florida's is the fact that Georgia doesn't have to play Georgia. So I'll go ahead and tell you, the Bulldogs are going to make the playoffs. They will not go to Atlanta. So I don't really have a ton to say there. We actually will have a video coming out soon talking about Georgia specifically and some things they've had going on. I will say part of my decision for them not going is there's a little bit of a culture issue there. I hate to say that, but and I know people might look and be like, oh, of course the Auburn fan is going to point out the culture of the Georgia Bulldogs. 24 traffic-related arrests and incidents since the death of Devin Willock. I hate to see that. They have enough talent to win every game on their schedule, but I think they're going to get pressed this year, and I just think there are teams with stronger cultures that will be able to stand up to them. One of those teams may or may not be Ole Miss. I'm actually not talking at all about the culture of Ole Miss because I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what that is because half of their impact players are portaled in. This is one of the strongest rosters in college football. Just the sheer amount of talent on this team. You have a Heisman contender in Jackson Dart at quarterback. You have Ulysses Bentley at running back, who people don't realize might be every bit as good as Quinshon Judkins, will probably do just fine. I'm going to butcher his name. I've always called him Princely Uman Malayan. I don't think that's how it's pronounced, but you portal him in from Florida. Walter Nolan, arguably the best defensive tackle in college football, plays for the Ole Miss Rebels. You portal in Juice Wells from South Carolina, who is a phenomenal perimeter talent as a wide receiver. This is a really, really, really good team. They are an experiment. I think something similar here is what happened at Michigan State a couple years ago, where they portaled in a lot of their talent, and they were really, really, really good down the stretch, but was not enough to get them to the Big Ten championship game. What can Ole Miss do with the roster structured the way it is? What I think they can do is win a lot of football games. I don't know that they can win the conference, and I'm not picking them to win the conference, and I'm not picking them to go to Atlanta. Oh, also, by the way, back to Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava is legit, and they have arguably the best defensive player in the country in James Pierce Jr. So that's another sort of add-on I want to throw there. Now, let me talk about the two teams. Let me talk about the two teams that are going to Atlanta. Let's start off with the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right. I think people are going to be upset at this. Hear what I'm saying. Don't pull from what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. Alabama's coaching staff upgraded. What I did not just say is that Kalen DeBoer is better than Nick Saban. Any coach in college football would have been a step down from Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer is not a huge step down. He is a phenomenal head football coach, and he has assembled an incredible staff down there. He also has kept some very important pieces in town, mainly my Heisman pick, Jalen Milroe. I am an Auburn fan, but I am dying to see Jalen Milroe in Kalen DeBoer's system. Now, I will say I have some questions about perimeter talent. They don't necessarily have the established names on the perimeter. They don't necessarily have established names in the backfield.
Jam Miller is a good running back.
He is a good running back. He's not even the only good running back you have. My point is saying these guys, you may view them as nameless right now. Also, this offensive line should take a major step forward from last year.
No more freaky snaps, please.
See, I heard freaky snaps, and I was like, we talking about...
Will, I don't want to hear it. You told me to put it in the hole in this episode.
Yeah, you're talking about freaky snaps. I thought we were talking about Carson Beck.
Maybe I got Georgia at 6-6. I don't know.
No, I don't know. But point is, this Alabama team is going to be really solid. I will say there's one player we're going to talk about that they lost that really hurts them. But I don't see this team losing any steps in the transition to Kalen DeBoer. I see them going to Atlanta. I see Jalen Milroe winning the Heisman. That is as complex as I'm going to get about it. It's a gut feeling. The team they're going to play in Atlanta is the Texas A&M Aggies. This is another one where people sit there and go, Texas A&M? Of all the teams in the SEC, you're going with Texas A&M. What about Texas?
Yeah, what about Texas?
Well, let's talk about Texas. Texas is going to lose to Oklahoma. They're going to lose to Georgia. They're going to lose to Texas A&M. People do not realize the game of this year, I'm calling this now, the game of the year is Texas A&M on rivalry weekend at Kyle Field. Texas will not win that game. They will need to win it, and they won't. Now, Texas A&M has a pretty strong schedule, but it's not absurd. To start the year, they host Notre Dame. That is a game that easily they could drop. I don't think they will. I have a lot of faith in this team. Sure, they lost a lot of talent. You lose Walter Nolan. Again, this team was so stacked. They kept so many players in town that, sure, you can look at losing Walter Nolan. You can look at losing Evan Stewart on the perimeter. They're going to be fine. Connor Wegman.
Oregon, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he went to Oregon. You have Connor Wegman at quarterback. You have a loaded backfield because you have Le'Veon Moss and, oh, my God, what is the kid's name? Oh, it's going to be right here, and I'm going to be so mad. Oh, my God. It's going to be right here. Oh, I'm so well researched. This special was thrown together in about 20 minutes, if you can't
Don't tell them that.
I got to tell them.
Did you follow Conan's advice?
I'm not telling them it's a bad show. This
Well,
is a
it
good
is.
show. No, don't leave
kidding.
me. Don't leave me. I have abandonment issues.
I'm not going to make...
Stop it. Texas A&M, but anyway, they host Notre Dame, then they go to Florida. That's one of those environments that is going to be really hot, especially if Florida has that win against Miami in their back pocket. That's going to be a tough one. Texas A&M certainly can win it. They host Missouri and LSU and Texas. I think they win 4 of those 5 games I just listed, potentially 5 of 5, and like I said, including Texas. The Aggies end up in Atlanta, but they fall short to the Alabama Crimson Tide. I have the Alabama Crimson Tide winning the SEC off nothing more than a gut feel, because the truth is there are too many contenders in this conference to sit here and nitpick and say like who may or may not win. I trust the Alabama Crimson Tide. I trust Kalen DeBoer. I trust Jalen Milroe. They're winning the SEC.
Well...
I wonder whose Matt's prediction is.
I think I'm required to. But I don't have to play in the same team because all of what Will said about Texas A&M, in my opinion, is not true. But, besides the fact about their players. But...
Now let me stop you right there. Hold on just a second. Do you not realize they might have made the biggest upgrade of any team in the offseason?
No, because I didn't pay attention to the offseason. We've established that.
They're going from Jimbo Fisher, who sucked,
Okay. Well, yes.
to Mike Elko,
Okay.
who is awesome and understands.
Because he's
By the way,
not Jimbo Fisher.
Let me kind of walk back what I said about Jimbo Fisher. He doesn't suck. He won. He's won a
he
national
mega sucks.
championship. Shut up. Jimbo Fisher did a bad job at Texas A&M. That is objectively true. I think he would tell you that. The truth is, and if he wouldn't, I'm going to say it. He did not do a good job at Texas A&M.
So you just speak for Jimbo.
They're going to. Mike Elko is going to step in and do just fine at Texas A&M. But you continue with your nonsense.
Well, okay. So I do think Missouri, LSU, all those teams that you name will be good. I think Oklahoma's going to struggle, actually. But it's just a gut feeling because I did not pay attention to the offseason that much. I think Ole Miss will be very good. Spoiler alert for later. I think Tennessee will be okay. But I'm, of course, going to put Alabama here. I'm going to pick them to beat upset, in quotation marks, Georgia. And I think that's going to be kind of like the game to decide between them two who goes here. But I have them playing the Texas Longhorns. The Texas Longhorns, while they did lose a lot of talent, like Will said, they added one of the best wide receivers in college football to their team, and they still have one of the best quarterbacks in college football and one of the best coaches in college football.
Now let me stop you right there again. Did they add one of the better wide receivers in college football? Absolutely. They lost 2 of the best ones. And here's the thing. That Steve Sarkisian system is so reliant on speed and ability to separate. Xavier Worthy, one of the best separators in college football, one of the better arguably the fastest player in college football last year. A.D. Mitchell, one of the best separators in college
I don't
football.
want to talk about A.D. Mitchell.
I know people have had concerns about A.D. Mitchell going 80% down the stretch. I don't care. They had such prolific perimeter talent last year. They will not have it this year. Isaiah Bond, great player in his own right. And I'm actually going to contest what you said about Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was really good last year. You're going to have better than really good quarterback play to win the SEC, and we're going to hope Quinn Ewers takes a step forward. I think it's awesome for college football if Quinn Ewers does and Texas goes to Atlanta. I think it'd be great if they end up in the playoffs.
I'll take you a step forward on that. Quinn Ewers will be in New York. He won't win, but he'll be in New York.
Okay.
Alabama wins the SEC, in my opinion, too, over Texas. Call me a homer hack or whatever you want to call me and say that I copied Will's thing. But I didn't because I have Texas here, and Texas A&M will not even be close to making the SEC championship game. So, thank you. I'm probably going to have to eat all these words.
I'm probably going to have to eat a lot. Now, I planned from the very beginning to talk about this conference last. The Big Ten is Ohio State's to lose. I feel like this has been said most years. I think this has been said multiple times during Michigan's reign over the Big Ten. I'm just going to say this now. Michigan's reign over the Big Ten is over. Now, what you might have just heard me say is Michigan is going to lose the Big Ten. That's not what I told you. This is not the same Michigan team that has dominated the Big Ten the past 3 years. It just simply is not. Whether it's player turnover, whether it's coaching staff turnover, which, by the way, I love Sherrone Moore. I think he's going to do just fine. They lost nearly everybody. This is a full-on rebuild. Not talent-wise. They did keep some very important players. Donovan Edwards, Colson Loveland, Will Johnson's still there. Just off the top of my head, this is going to be a very good team. In fact, I'll go ahead and tell you, I do have Michigan making my playoffs. I don't have them going to the Big Ten championship game. Who I do have going to the Big Ten championship game is the Oregon Ducks. Guys, the Oregon Ducks the past few years have been a Big Ten team playing in the Pac-12. People are worried about the physicality. You shouldn't. They have recruited and developed as good as any team in the country. And I mean any team, no exceptions. They have done it as good as anybody. They have phenomenal perimeter talent. In fact, they upgraded on the perimeter when we're talking about going from Troy Franklin to Evan Stewart. I love that a lot. Now, quarterback is an interesting situation there. You got Dylan Gabriel, who is another guy that very well could end up in New York. I'm biased here. I know. I've always loved Bo Nix. I was right about Bo Nix. I still got to make that video someday. I don't think it's a huge downgrade, if any at all. He's going to step in and do just fine there. And along the lines of scrimmage, they have depth, which is something you can't say for every team in college football. This is a really solid team, and they are going to be as physical as you need to be to win the Big Ten. Now, I also want to take a second to talk about Penn State. Penn State, for the last however long, has just been the B-tier team. They have been third place. They have beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and then they've lost to Michigan and Ohio State. That's kind of just been their role. In fact, last year they got embarrassed by both of those teams, in my opinion. So do we see them take a step forward? I think we absolutely could. I think Drew Aller takes a step forward. They've got the offensive coordinator in from Kansas. So the problem last year was explosive play rate in big games. People don't realize their offense in every game but the Ohio State-Michigan games was good. But then they ran into a brick wall. And Penn State's always going to have a talented defense. That they will have a supremely talented defense this year. And yeah, they did lose some perimeter talent. Talking about Keandre Lambert-Smith, who made his way over to Auburn. I'm very excited about him.
Boo.
But Penn State's going to be solid. I don't have them making it to the Big Ten championship game, as I stated previously. Wisconsin is a really interesting team here because I think we will see
They have a tough schedule, though.
They have a tough schedule. They have a great head coach in Luke Fickell, and they have one of the bigger trap games on their schedule in favor of them. Alabama.
Yeah, I know.
That's a really interesting one. Another team that I think we have to talk about is Nebraska. Nebraska, very favorable schedule. The toughest opponent they face is Ohio State. They got to go to Ohio State to face them, but They dodge Michigan. They dodge Oregon. I believe they dodge Penn State as well. They've got a very favorable schedule, and they are going to see an upgrade at quarterback from what they've had. And the last few years, they've had a really solid defense. This is a true wrecking ball team in the sense that they could wreck the entire Big Ten title picture and make it there. But that being said, now we got to talk about Ohio State. Ohio State has one of the most loaded rosters I have ever seen. This might be the most loaded roster in college football history. I mean, this goes head-to-head with those Miami teams. We talk about Bama in 2020, LSU in 2019, Florida in 2008. This roster is disgusting, and they have the best player in college football, Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, irreplaceable kind of talent.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so they have him, but they also have something unique, which is they have a lot of guys that could have gone early in the draft that decided to stay. You have Emeka Ibuka, who decided to stay. He's probably going to be their wide receiver 1. Phenomenal player who decided to stay. JT Tuimoloau, he stayed. Big-time impact player. The last couple of years, we've kind of seen it's funny. He'll be fine, and then he'll have one game that he just wrecks. I think we'll see him be a lot better this year under year 3 under that defensive coordinator. But guys, I'll just go ahead and tell you I'm bad with names off the top of my head. They also hung on to Denzel Burke. That's another impact player you hang on to.
I forgot about him.
Yeah, Denzel Burke, really, really, really solid corner. They have the best backfield in college football. They have 2 guys. I don't think people realize how rare this is. They have 2 guys that legitimately could go in the first round of the NFL draft as a running back. Travion Henderson and Mr. EA College Football 25, Quinshon Judkins, who, no, he will not play like he does in EA College Football 25.
He will.
He will be a phenomenal player, though.
I can't die.
And Matt brought this up in our little production meeting before this.
We had
They've
one of
upgraded the quarterback. They have they have Will Howard, who is a veteran presence, who has won a lot of tough football games at Kansas State. If he steps in and just plays fine, they're going to win. They also have a true freshman who is an absolute freak, wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. That's a guy who can contend for Blitnikoff as a freshman. He is that kind of talent. He's a stud.
Freaky.
Now, if you notice, there's a position group I haven't mentioned, and that is offensive line. I'm not sitting here telling you it's going to be bad. I'm telling you it's a question mark, and this will decide what the Big Ten is. If that offensive line is good, no one will touch them. They will go 12-0 en route to the playoffs. That's how I feel about that. If that offensive line is shaky, well, then you might see them go to Autzen Stadium and lose to Oregon. You might see them lose to Michigan a 4th time. You might see them drop a game to Nebraska. Oh, that's a weird one. But I will say they're going to be just fine, and they will win the conference. I don't know that they'll go undefeated because that game at Oregon in week 4, that's a tough one. That might be the hottest crowd in Autzen Stadium history, and that is a notoriously loud crowd for people who don't know. So I do have Ohio State winning the Big Ten. I have them doing it over Oregon, so I think we see a rematch, which is unfortunate because both of those teams will also make the playoffs, and there's a world where we see a rematch between those 2 teams. Again, so the same teams could play 3 times in the same year. This sucks so bad. So that's my Power 4 picks. Well, who do you have winning the Big Ten?
So guys, well, I have a lot to add to this because I have 2 different schools in the championship game here. I have the Buckeyes versus the Ducks, actually. Actually, I'm joking. I have Ohio State because of what Will just said, one of the most loaded rosters. And when we're going to talk about them more, I feel like, in this video. And then I have the Oregon Ducks going because their offense has been great. They added Evan Stewart, and they will have a Heisman contender in Dylan Gabriel. But I think Michigan and Penn State will also be good, too. And don't sleep on my Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Please sleep on them. All right, let's get to the predictions
All
here.
right, so that being said, those are the 4 Power 4, because that's a thing now, champions, and they
That's
get
just
the
for the
4
Pac-12.
auto bids. I'll just go ahead and say I have Ohio State probably undefeated, maybe undefeated, maybe 1 loss. If there is an undefeated team, it'll be Ohio State. I have them ranked as number 1, Alabama at number 2. I have then Clemson being in that 3rd spot, and then Utah at 4. And then that, in my opinion, poses a very interesting situation where those teams probably are not going to be favored in the second round games they end up playing. So
we have a difference here, actually, because I have Ohio State 1, Alabama 2, but I have Utah 3 and Clemson 4.
So, as you know, as you probably know, there are 5 auto bids. So that means that the highest ranked G5 champion is going to get into this thing.
Copied me, you asshole. I picked them first. Change it.
I'm not changing it because it's undeniable that it's them. So
The Kennesaw State Owls.
Yep, clearly. If you play EA college football, you'd probably think that's true. But no, I got to be honest with you guys. This does not matter. It does not matter who gets the G5 bid. They will not win. But
It could eventually matter. Eventually.
no.
2038, book it. Boise State National Championship.
Yeah, no, it's just not going to happen. All the Cinderellas are just going to be like 9-3 SEC teams. I hope you guys are ready for that. We both have Tulane. Matt picked Tulane before me, but Tulane is in a weird situation because they lost an incredible head coach in Willie Fritz, who went to take over Houston, and then got an equally as good, maybe better coach in John Summerall, who is doing incredible things at Troy. I'm not betting against – really, I wouldn't bet against either of those coaches. It's just that obviously Houston is not a G5 team anymore. So, yeah, give me the Tulane Green Wave. And they're going to be 12th in my playoff.
See, I didn't know. So they'll be 12th in mine, too, but I didn't really know how the seeding worked before this. So they're 5 in mine, but they'll be 12.
Yeah, so this is where it gets fun. Now, we're not going to sit and go through the entire playoffs. We're just going to say who we think is going to make it and then who we think is going to win the national championship. So
We actually don't know who each other's national championship picks are. So if those are the same, I promise you we did not know.
yeah. My first team out is Texas A&M. I have them, of course, going to Atlanta and losing to Alabama. I think they will be the first team out. By the way, there's a notable team that's missing in mine that we'll talk about at some point. So I have Texas A&M at number 5. Where do you have Texas A&M, or do you have Texas A&M?
You think I have Texas A&M after what I just said about them? They're going 7 and 5. But
Are you just bitter?
bitter about what?
What happened a couple years ago?
Yeah, but what happened last year?
Fair point.
I
Yeah,
have
that's right.
Texas. It's kind of a funny coincidence, but I have the Longhorns. I think this is like our one major difference here. He thinks Texas A&M is going to be good. I think Texas is going to be good. Go ahead.
Number 6, I have a third SEC team in. This will be the spot for Georgia, who will have just missed out. And there's a reason for that. You might sit there and go like Georgia being ahead of someone who played in the conference championship and lost. It'll make sense when I kind of elaborate on why I have my number 7 where I have them.
I have no faith in them valuing that at all because we've seen it in the past. So I actually have the second Big Ten team in, not being the Big Ten team that went to the championship game. I have Michigan here.
See, I actually have Michigan at 11th. I have them being the last Power 5 team to get in. At number 7, I actually have Oregon, because if I had to put money on this thing, I think Oregon is going to have 2 losses on their record, both to Ohio State. So that's why I think they might end up below Georgia. And then at number 8, here's
Hey.
the wild card.
I didn't get to say mine. Didn't let me say my number 7. Georgia.
All right. Now, number 8 is where I feel weird because I made an impulse decision. I don't know. I'm split between 2 teams. On this piece of paper, or on this laptop,
It's not paper.
I have Miami at number 8. Pretty favorable schedule. But if you remember, I didn't even have them playing in the ACC championship. So this one, I'm undecided on. I'm going to stick with it. And I'm actually going to change my ACC championship. Is what I would say if I had no faith in the Florida State Seminoles. Miami, I do not have making the playoffs
Don't take
anymore.
Tulane out.
I'm not taking Tulane out, Matthew.
Tulane.
I actually have Tennessee at number 8, and then at number 9 will be Florida State.
At my number 8, I have the Oregon Ducks.
And then who's your number 9?
My number 9 is Florida State.
Well, how about that? Now, number 10, this is where I'm going to get fun with it because we talk about
Oh, no.
can pure talent make it to the playoffs? My answer is yes. The Ole Miss Rebels are going to make the playoffs as the number 10th team in the country. And then, as I already mentioned, Michigan is my number 11 with Tulane at 12. So who's your number 10 and 11?
My number 10's Ole Miss. I promise. I actually had Ole Miss in the playoffs before he did, because I had a quote in the production meeting that was, I thought when this got expanded to 12, it really helped Ole Miss because they're always in the 10 to 12 area, regardless of what talent they had or not. And at 11, I have Penn State. I put them in late. It was actually down to Penn State and Iowa State for me because I think Iowa State will be a sleeper team in the Big 12.
All right. So that being said, now we're just going to, on 3, who is winning the College Football National Championship? 1, 2, 3.
Ohio State. I actually have to add to this. What was the matchup in the first college football playoff national championship, and who won?
That would be Ohio State and Oregon.
I thought it was...
They played you guys in the semifinals.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, I actually have them beating us, but I could see it being Oregon too.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think we actually very much could see a run from any of the teams that I have between 5 and 10, maybe even Michigan too. But
Tulane.
No, but I have Ohio State winning the College Football National Championship. If not this year, then when? Now, let me be clear. If they don't, I'm not one of those people that's like, fire Ryan Day. Ryan Day's still one of the best coaches in the country, but this is a gotta-have-it year for Ohio State. I don't know that I've ever seen such investment from a team that's already S tier to be like S plus tier. This is a gotta-have-it year for them, and I think they will have it. Ohio State is going to win the College Football National Championship. So, with that, I leave it up to you. Who do you think is making the playoffs? Who's winning all these conferences? Who's winning the College Football National Championship? And a more fun question, who's your Game of the Year pick? Like I said, I think it's going to be Texas A&M and Texas in rivalry week, but there are a lot of really interesting games we'll see played this year. Like, for instance, I think part of the reason Texas is not going to be here is because I think they're going to drop their game to Michigan early in the year.
That's going to be a fun game.
Yeah. So
also, USC and LSU is going to be really fun.
It's going to be really interesting, too, because very similar situations, prolific offenses, bad defenses last year. So that being said, thank you for watching. This has been the Eminem, Slim Shady. Sorry. This has been the M&S College Football Prediction Special. I'll let you go.
I'll try to watch some Josh Pate, guys.
Have a blessed day.